Hello and welcome along to what is the penultimate episode of our first ever series here on the Left Wing Back podcast. Today I'm going to be chatting with a man who had an incredible knack for scoring goals. He featured on some of the top sides that have played the game at school level in presentation Salle College. He played at an All-Ireland club final in Croke Park, and he also has 2 Christy Ring Cup medals. His journey wasn't without adversity, and we talk about the underage days when county hurling seemed like a dream rather than destiny, and we find out how it eventually became a reality. Today's guest is Doyle of Bagenalstown, Gaels, and the episode is brought to you in association with Corcoran Precast Tanks, and you can check them out on www.corcoranprecasttanks.ie and across all social media platforms. Salle, good to have you on board. We're going around all the clubs, and you're next on the hit list. A good career, I suppose. We're just still going.
Yeah, just about at the moment, I think.
Come here, what got you into hurling in the first place? I know your father was a big man with Erin's Own.
Yeah, I'd say that's where it all started from, was my father. He was, I suppose when I was young, he was heavily involved with Erin's Own and whatnot, so kind of love of it started from there, going trainings with him with the seniors and watching what they were doing, and it kind of just went from there then, and obviously we started fairly young. Liam Shinners, we had him in, I think it was second class, and you didn't go to school without a hurl back then, you know, that's the way it was, and every lunch break was a hurling match or whatever. Back, I suppose, when PE was a little bit different, and you could get a few cuts and bruises, but things have changed now, I know.
So you kind of were the star, so to speak, on Carlow minor sides, and that came on the back of county final success with Erin's Own at minor level as well, when you had some great teams.
Yeah, I didn't really start playing county hurling, I think, till nearly, I think it was my final year under 16, and then into minor. I kind of went from there then and never kind of looked back. So we were growing up, we had a lot of good teams, I suppose, underage. The likes of John Miley and that, so they would have been a year ahead of me, I suppose, at underage. And I think from 12s the whole way up to minor, we won every county championship going. It was on my good year then that we kind of struggled. I don't think we won one. So that's kind of where it all started from. And I suppose the want to succeed kind of came from that as well, because as a group of players on our final year, we never really won anything, if that makes sense.
And you enjoyed fairly success along the way.
Yeah, so that would have been the same kind of scenario. It would have been my weaker year under 14. So the likes of, like I said, John Miley, Anthony Elliott, Niall Dre, Owen Summers, there was a lot of good hurlers around back then, you know, so it was hard to break onto the team at the time. I was in and out of the team back then, never really held down a starting spot on my weaker year. Like I said, the kind of hunger and the want to succeed kind of, I suppose, stemmed from that a small bit.
I was just going to say, like, it's not something I would associate with. I thought you were probably first on the team sheet growing up. So what was the kind of kick in the arse you needed, or when did you decide I need to up my game here and try improve?
I'd always mess and joke around with Mick Miley a small bit. Whenever I seen him, we'd be talking hurling, he dropped me for I think it was the Fail All Ireland semi final or final. He dropped me from, I can't remember which it was. And the following year, then I kind of said, you know what, I was looking at lads my own age getting called in, the likes of Jacko and Dotsy, Minnie Minchin, and that, get called into county panels, and I wasn't, I suppose, and under 14s, and then I think there might have been a 15s development squad, and I was missing out on these, and I kind of said, you know what, that's something I wanted to be a part of. So I just kind of, I suppose it sounds silly that you were so young, but it kind of did affect you a small bit, that you wanted to be one of the guys getting called in and you weren't. So from there I kind of said, you know what, it's time to kind of get a little bit serious about it and try and practice what I could be really good at. I suppose at that age group I wasn't one of the bigger lads on the team. I would have been a lot smaller than a lot of the lads going around. So I kind of worked on simple things like my first touch and my speed, and, you know, I suppose even agility to an extent at that age. But, you know, like, I suppose avoiding tackles and being able to take tackles. I was never going to be knocking lads down or giving the biggest of shoulders or hits or anything like that. So I kind of found what I was good at and concentrated on that side of things.
And one of those things you're very good at was scoring goals, and it's kind of something that became part of your makeup when you progressed to senior ranks as well. You always kind of went for the juggler.
Yeah, I don't actually know where that came from really. I suppose it kind of just kicked off maybe around the time of the schools we were playing with Garvey. We had on Garvey over us, and he had me playing a full forward. And I suppose it was kind of then I kind of look back and say that's kind of where I kind of kick started from, was kind of in around that time. So it was that, and I had the minor county at the same time. And I suppose with Garvey, it was kind of always the thing of goals are going to win matches. When you get a chance, just go for it. I don't care. Just keep going and going and going, head down. So I kind of started from there. And I suppose it's like anything, it's an addiction. You get you get accustomed to it then, and it's just something. I suppose it's a thrill in a way. You can get a point or two and whatever, but it's just a different feeling when you get a goal, I suppose.
That was a great team in De La Salle that you were on, and you got to an Ireland final against St. Pat's of Mahara. Defeat on the day, but some great memories, no doubt, on the journey.
Yeah, it was a great time, I suppose. It was a great time to be in school. Wasn't a great time to be doing your leaving cert, all right, but we won't talk about that.
Can you remember much of the Bunclody game, the Leinster success? Because you'd lost a couple of games, I think, before that, hadn't you? A couple of Leinster finals.
Yeah, we'd lost two. Buntody that was the final, was it? It was, wasn't it?
Yeah, and Dr. Cullen.
Yeah, that's right. We played them in the final, I remember, and we had lost the two previous to that. Yeah, so it was a big deal for us. And I think if I'm right, we absolutely blitzed them on the day. I think 3 something to 1-5 or 1-8, or it was this. They had a really low score anyway. I suppose the game in itself, in a way, if I can remember correctly, was over after 15-20 minutes nearly. It was definitely over half time. We had some exceptional performances on the day. I can remember Aaron Cox had a really good game, a corner forward. I think he got 2 goals and a couple of points, and a couple of good other performances around the field. Jacko at centre back, we had Murty Cummins full back. We had a really good team. Dwayne Cavan in midfield. So yeah, we absolutely blitzed them on the day. So it was great.
And against the Derry boys, I think Christy McCaig possibly could have been playing that day, who obviously went on to be very successful with Schlockneil and hurling and football. So did a couple of stars, really.
Yeah, that was the final. Yeah,
The All Ireland final, yeah.
yeah. And I can remember on the day as well. We had Garvey used to always say we had Jacko playing centre back. I suppose at the time Jacko was probably one of the best backs around, given his age, pound for pound and whatever. He was really, really good back then, and Garvey always had a thing: if Jacko doesn't perform, who's going to step up, kind of, And like, to the man's credit, he was unbelievable all year. But I'd say this was the one game where maybe somebody got a run on him. Now I'm not saying he had a bad game either, but it was the one day where somebody got a little run on him. We lost by a couple of points. Do I blame him for defeat? Yeah, I probably do. No, I don't. Jeez, I don't.
The best of friends, of course.
Yeah. I think we're very good friends. No, jeez, I don't. But yeah, look, we had a good team, and we had a good system, and Garvey kind of knew where our strengths were and picked the team around that. He really focused on what we could do well and how we could nullify, I suppose, their strengths in most games. And everyone bought into it. This was the big thing. We had at the time, I suppose, we had some superstars on the team. Like I said, I kind of mentioned Aaron Cox, and you had Dwayne, and you had Jacko. Really, Jacko, like I said, probably at the time standout hurler of his age group, and probably of 2 or 3 age groups around. There was no one really as good as him at the time.
A late bloomer as well, Craig.
What's that?
He was a late bloomer, I suppose. He took a while to kind of become that star.
Yeah, Jacko.
In terms of underage.
Yeah, a small bit. Like I'd go back to even there. I was saying, when I was under 14s and 16s, maybe, and on your weaker year, you were kind of in and out of the team a lot. But I suppose Jacko always held down cornerback his whole way up along, and then on his stronger year, he'd be back in at centre back and whatnot. But then, I suppose, like a little bit like myself, really, when he hit kind of minor level, it's kind of when you kind of stood back and went, Jesus, this lad's actually, he's one of the best around here all of a sudden. Yeah. I suppose we had a few lads like that in Bagenalstown. The likes of Alfie as well was kind of in a way a really late bloomer. He was minor level at the time as well. We always knew he was good coming up along, but we never thought he'd turn out to be the player he was, or he is.
Yeah, because I don't even know, was he part of that panel that got to the All-Ireland final?
No. We kind of look back at that every now and then. We'd have, you'd have your old chats down the pub and whatever, and we always used to say, if Alfie was the player or half the player he was back then, we probably would have won that All-Ireland final.
Yeah, and just on that team, we were lucky enough to play senior A colleges hurling 2008, 2009. I would say, pound for pound, your team was much better than ours. Is that a bit of a regret, or was there ever much of a mention of that possibly happening with Garvey?
I don't think so. No, I think we kind of accepted it for what it was at the time. Like you said, some great memories from it. Some great days out. I don't think we really had a home game. We had a lot of bus journeys here, there, and everywhere. And it was, I suppose, in a way, it was the makeup of the team. It's why we were so good. We were so close. We were just like, it was like a big family in a way, in comparison to other teams I played on, where maybe you had little pockets of friends and groups, and lads from different years kind of stuck together. But this was just one. It was just a big panel, and it was it was just a big bunch of fun in a way, I suppose. We enjoyed what we were doing, but at the back of it all, we loved winning. That was the main thing for us.
There's one of those minor finals sticks out against Carlatown when you won that day. I know Summers scored a point almost identical to DJ Carey's in the All-Ireland against Clare. Do you remember much of that?
I do, in a way. I think it was Summers playing wing forward maybe. I think I was full forward. I think Beanie could have been corner forward. And I think it was one of those games where I came off. I don't think I even scored. And it was one of those ones I kind of said, Jesus, that was a quick 60 minutes, and you didn't even get on the score sheet. But I remember Owen Summers. I remember playing with him, and the man, what he could do with a ball was phenomenal, and you'd look at him, and he'd go away to college, and he might go missing for a year, and next thing he'd come back, and he'd still have it, and you're just going, I've worked so hard all winter on fitness, on whatever else, and I've been working on my first touch, and the man had come back, and his touch and his vision, everything, he just had it upstairs as well. He was one of those ones where I suppose he got away from us a small bit. We never got the best out of him at senior level because he wasn't around for long enough. I think he went off to be a doctor and so on. And look, you have to respect lads' decision on that element of things as well. But yeah, definitely one that I feel kind of got away from us at senior level.
I remember you possibly being flown home for an All-Ireland Minor B final, I think 2005. Was it a county board job now, or did you put the hand into your own pocket?
I'd say Willie put the hand in his pocket. I definitely didn't anyway. I remember I was on holidays, and I'm not sure if I missed the semi-final or I played the semi-final, but we got word then that the final was going to be on the Saturday, and we were only due to fly home on the Saturday. So Willie says to me, what you want to do? And I says, I don't really know. I said, would you like to go play it? We can go play it. So I said, yeah, I would like to play it. It's going to be my last ever minor county game. At the time, you were probably in a little bubble where you didn't know, am I going to be good enough to play at senior level? I might never wear a Carlow jersey again. All those kind of thoughts are around. So you kind of wanted to go and finish on a high. It was a game, in a way, we expected to win, and we kind of expected to win easy enough as well. I'm not sure. I think it was Tommy Buggy was over. So I'm not sure if he was too happy that I flew home, because I probably made a hard decision for him then. He's kind of looking at me going, this lad's after flying back from Spain, I may start him.
So that year you lost to Laois by a point, I think, in the championship proper, and I know that's one that hurts certain people on the panel still. And on that day in the All-Ireland final, I think it was yourself and Pádraig Amon playing close to goal. Name a better duo, says you.
Yeah, that's right. Amon was, I think I was at corner forward and Amon was maybe full. I think at the time we might have played a two-man full forward line. So yeah, it was probably the two of us inside. I'm not sure if Pádraig actually played after that. Maybe he played the following year and he went on then. But yeah, the man, I suppose he could do what he wanted, couldn't he? No matter what sport he seemed to turn his hand to, he seemed to be good at. I'd say if he took up golf, he'd be good at that as well. I suppose
one of those people. He's running 5Ks in 16 minutes as well. Sick enough.
Was he one of them guys? I seen Ross Barkley doing one. Yeah, if you're aiming for sub 20, it's fairly good. But if you're hitting 16 minutes, it's a different level altogether. It's I wouldn't like
So
to even think about
sticking
going.
with 2005, that was just an incredible year. You played Leinster finals with schools, rocked on to All Ireland series or whatever, All Ireland minor finals, and then of course you end up playing a Leinster junior final with Aaron in Croke Park, which you win against Thomastown, 3-14 to 3-9. What a year!
Yeah, it was a great year. It was a great year.
And you're still minor.
Still minor. We were still minor, still in sixth year. That's what I'm saying. Wasn't a great year to be doing your leaving cert. But look, we loved every minute of it. I'd never go back and change any of it. It was absolutely brilliant. I can remember we were actually playing junior at the time. We'd a strong junior team, and we had, I suppose, in terms of senior, we had a weak senior team, so they got regraded to intermediate. They went out and they played St Mullins in the first round of the championship in intermediate, and I think St Mullins gave them a fairly good beating on the day. And I remember I was down in Tramore and my father rang me and he says, look, I'd never put pressure on you to play any sports in your life, he said, and I'm not going to start, he said, but he said, you may consider going and playing intermediate. He said the boys need a few hurlers, they need a few players to step up now. So I just said, yeah, grand, no bother. So that was it. Decision made on the spot on. I went and played. We got to a county final. The juniors then had got knocked out, I think, in the semi-final. So the likes of Jacko and Murty, Cummins, Dotsy, they were all coming up to the intermediate panel then as well. And we played St Mullins in Dr. Cullen in the final, and it was a rainy day, and we got out with Jail on the day as well. I think it was a really low scoring affair. It could have been 8 points to 5 or something like that. It was a really, really bad day for hurling. Didn't suit anyone. And from there, then we went on and got to an All Ireland final. Again, like I said about the schools at the time, there was a lot of travelling around, and they really kind of made the team what it was at that stage. And I thought we had a good team. I thought we had a really good team. We were young. We had a good mix of experience with Fergal Byrne and Trevor, Peter, Christy, Cody. We had a lot of experience around the team as well. So I thought to myself, Jesus, I'll get 3 or 4 senior championship medals out of this, but that was never to be.
So your memories of the Leinster final itself, I know you were quite young obviously at the time. You scored a goal again in that one. Thomastown had John Joe Farrell and some really good hurlers that played with Kilkenny subsequently. So great memories.
Yeah, geez, an unbelievable day. I can remember the hill if you like, and all around the side of the field. It's kind of pitch where the field or the supporters are on top of you. It's really close to the field. The atmosphere was electric. It was one of those ones, when you look back at it now, you just didn't appreciate what you were involved in. You just kind of went about your business, but you didn't really take notice of what was going on and how it affected, I suppose, the town itself and the club. And you just thought it was one of these things that just happened, and you just get used to it. And looking back, you kind of wish you took more notice of what was going on. But it was a great day. It was a good game of hurling. I suppose for the standard we were playing at. Again, like you said, John Joe Farrell was there. I think we had Niall Dre, a fullback, marking him. Again, we had Jacko, we had Fergal Byrne, we had a right group of young players on the team as well. I think we even had Peter Barron come on, and Peter could have been 15 or 16 at the time. So the future kind of did look bright for us, and yeah, we had a good time, good celebrations afterwards as well, I suppose.
Yeah, so you beat Skahana, I think it was, of Galway up in Banagher. I remember you hitting a late free, and I think in the paper at the time you said it was possibly the worst free you hit, and then you looked up and it turned out to be the best free, because I think Christy Cody was at Galflick.
Something along the lines of that, yeah. It was one of those frees where I think it was between the 45 and the 65, and it was right in front of the goal, so it was what should have been an easy free. And I remember I kind of half missed the pickup, and then hit the ball completely. And I can remember kind of going, Jesus, that's it, it's done. And next thing, I looked up and Christy with his big long arms got a flick on the ball and put it to the back of the net. Yeah, so I'd like to say we worked on it in training, but we didn't.
That took you to Croke Park. So what was it like stepping out in Croke Park on All Ireland final day in 2006?
2006, yeah. Yeah, it was brilliant. It was surreal, I suppose, look, it's no All Ireland final day really. You're going out in front of maybe 3,000 or 4,000 people in comparison to 80,000, but just the whole experience of the day, the bus journey up, driving in under Croke Park, getting into the big dressing rooms, having that whole experience of it. We came up against the Father O'Neill's team. I can't think of the guy who was playing midfield. I think it was Leary or
O'Leary.
O'Leary, yeah. The man was just on fire on the day. He was striking balls left, right, and centre, over the bar, on the run, out round midfield. He was just couldn't contain him on the day. He had one of those days. I think we were poor enough on the day in certain aspects as well. I missed a couple of frees. I think we hit the post. We lost by 6 points on the day. They were probably the better team, but we probably should have been a bit closer to them. But again, it was another one of those things where the game was over, you were disappointed, but I think at the time you're young and you're naive and you just kind of go, should we be back here next year? That was just the mentality you had, I suppose, at the time. It was something you were after getting accustomed to over the last year and a half with the success you had at schools, at minor, the Leinster and so on, and you kind of thought, well, this is how it's going to be every year from now on. But like I said, things quickly change on that aspect of things.
So you didn't actually contest a senior final until 2009 after the All-Ireland appearance. So what happened in those years in between? Because everyone thought you were going to rock on and be serious senior contenders almost straight away.
Yeah, I suppose like I did myself, but you quickly learn that the step up from intermediate or even from minor, from schools up to senior is a lot different. I remember one of my first senior games going out, and I can't remember, but I remember we were playing Rangers on one of my first years at senior level, and I think I was wing forward and I was marking Eddie Cody. And to be honest, like at the time, I would have been ignorant to senior hurling and to senior county hurling, and I didn't really know the man I was marking, if you like. And it's only when you got to know him, you kind of went, Jesus, this was one of the greats of Carlow hurling, and you're going toe to toe with this lad all of a sudden, and you're kind of going, right, probably what I was doing last year and the year before is not enough to succeed at this level. So I suppose in Bagenalstown we always had this, I don't know if we still do, maybe we do, second year syndrome, some people would call it around here, where we give it a lash for a year and we kind of do all right and maybe get a couple of wins, get to a semi-final or whatever, or just miss out in a semi-final, and you think, right, well, we can step it up another notch and we can maybe make a semi-final or maybe win a semi-final, get to a final, and the following year comes around and it just goes downhill completely. Lack of numbers in the park and so on, and we could come up with 100 excuses, I suppose, as every other club could, but yeah, it seems to be a thing where we put it in for a year and then we just kind of take the foot off the gas. It's like we kind of go, should we try it? And it wasn't good enough. Whereas I think the great teams will try and they'll say, right, well, we tried. We could probably try a little bit harder, and they'll go at it again. I suppose that's maybe where our downfall is.
Right, so although it was quiet between 2007 up until that county final in 2009, I suppose, you had good success with Carlow in that period, winning a Christy Ring in 2008 and 2009. You scored a couple of goals, I think, against Westmeath in 08 in Tullamore.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. Played Westmeath a cracker of a game, went extra time. I think on the day, Brendan Murtagh was unbelievable at centre forward for Westmeath, and we had Shane Kavanagh at centre back or full back. I don't know, they were marking each other anyway, and he had an unbelievable game as well. It was one of those games where you stood back and went, geez, it's strange that either of those could have got man of the match, considering they were marking each other. The two of them were so good on the day. It was nip for tuck the whole way. Murtagh at the time at that level, at Christy Ring standard, was probably one of the, if not the standout player in the division. Really, really good. Still really good, I suppose. But back then, yeah, the man was hard to handle, and in fairness to Kavanagh, on the day was just as hard to handle for him. He gave him everything he wanted of it. Like you said, I think I got 2 goals on the day. 2 of them were kind of trying to play for me. I think, I'm not sure who set up the first one. I'm fairly sure it was Robbie set up the second one, and I'd say I only touched the ball 3 times on the day. Yeah, it was one of those games, but loads of scoring in it.
Was it kind of easier going to Croke Park in 2009 than to play down in that final, having been there a few years previous to there in zone? Were you a bit more relaxed?
Yeah, it was not really something that I suppose ever used to affect me. I remember my mother asking me after the 05 one, well, what was that like? And, you must be delighted to have played in Croke Park. And it was just, again, like, maybe it's just an ignorance that you have. You just kind of go, sure, it's just the green field with white lines on it, That was kind of the way I would have looked at it. Looking back on it, I'm absolutely delighted that you can say I've played in Croke Park. There's lads that give their right arm to have that experience. Delighted to have done it and been there. And but at the end of the day, look, it's not the be all and end all. I suppose five. The main thing that you could take from was we didn't win on the day. You could have played it where you wanted. If you're not winning, what's it really matter where the game was or anything like that? But I'd say, yeah, it probably had a small effect going up to play in Croke Park in '09, where you kind of thought, well, I've been here and done it, and there's nothing new to me now. It's just a big stadium is all. And like I said, I was always a bit ignorant to it. It didn't really bother me where I was playing or who was going to be there, kind of a thing. You just wanted to go out and play, and I suppose you just wanted to win. That was it.
Sticking with '09, then Aaron's get to a county final, massive occasion. A 2-point loss to Rangers, a very good Rangers team. I was talking to James Hickey lately, and he said although there was only 2 points in it, he didn't feel at any stage that they were in danger of losing that game. What's your thoughts on
it? Hickey would say that, Harry, wouldn't he? Yeah, I kind of feel it's one that got away. And when I say one that got away from us, I think I've only played in 2, but I think it's one where experience, like you said, that Rangers team was unbelievable. So it was really good, some really good hurlers. They were really well drilled. They knew what they were doing. But I kind of feel it was one where experience, been there, done that, and that all stood to them hugely. 2 points isn't an awful lot in hurling. Do I think with a bit more experience and a bit more know-how that we could have maybe won that game? I think we could have, yeah. We were still quite a young team, I suppose, back then. The bones of our team was probably players of my age, which was at the time 21, maybe 22, in and around there. We were very young at the time. But yeah, definitely one that got away from us. The year itself was a good year, and the county final on the day was probably, in terms of any games I've played in, was probably one of the best, I suppose, experiences I've ever had in an Aaron's Own jersey. What I mean is, like, we had the pre-match parade and whatnot, and then I suppose when you turn at the goal and you face into the hill, and it was just to see a black and white, and it was something I'd never seen before, and the hair just stand up on the back of your neck, and it was just, I tell lads that, and I've said it to younger lads coming up, there's nothing beats it, and I've never won a county medal, but that day itself, that's what kind of said to me, I really want to be back here again. The people of Bagenalstown they were great, they were all there, just unfortunate we couldn't get over the line on the day, but a great year and a great experience, yeah.
And you did get back there, of course, in 2012, and on the day that was just a pure disaster, I suppose, under Damien Fitzhenry. Probably one you don't even want to talk about, I'd say.
Yeah, just embarrassing, really, that was. I can't even remember what we got bet by. It was definitely double figures anyway. It was one of those days where I suppose we knew what we were trying to do on the day. We tried to be over clever with our game plan. Did I agree with the game plan? No, I absolutely didn't. But look, you can't turn around and say we're not doing that. You're there. You're only a player at the end of the day. You do what you're kind of told, in a sense.
Did it involve 2 sweepers? Is this the plan you're talking about?
This is we had 2 sweepers. So we played, I think it was myself and Ray Kent more or less played in the full forward line. And I remember looking around, and it was myself and himself, and there wasn't a forward to be seen nearly around us, and they had about 5 defenders marking the 2 of us. And sure, whatever hope you have with I suppose with a 2-on-1 or a 3-on-2, a 5-on-2, where it's just, you just don't have a chance, So you couldn't even get your hand on the ball. It was a really poor executed plan on the day. It's something I think we panicked a small bit because again it was a really good Rangers team and we tried to nullify them up front. But when you look at the games today and the systems that are played today, if you're playing a sweeper like that, you need to carry the ball through the lines and you need to work the ball into scoring areas, which we didn't. We didn't, I suppose, have the hurlers to do that either, and that's no disrespect. That's just the level that we were at, I suppose, as a club at the time. We hadn't the hurlers to carry the ball through the lines, and we were where we should have had extra men and be more comfortable on the ball further back the field. We were still under pressure in our clearances and wasn't given forwards a chance, and the ball was just endless then coming back on top of our own defenders, so it was just one of those days where everything just went wrong. Anything that could have went wrong, and before you knew it, it was just out of our hands, and the game was over early in the day, and there was no coming back from it.
And that plan takes years to perfect as well. It's not something you can just rock up and do on the day. It's not even something you could do over a season, perhaps, as Derek McGrath proved with Waterford.
Yeah. You look at some of the top teams, and you look at what they are doing today in terms of their game plans and their styles of play, and a lot of them are so similar but so different at the same time. But yeah, it's not something that you can just rock up, especially at club level. It's different, I know it's a bit slower and whatnot, but you need anywhere from 15 to 22 lads who are comfortable at doing that, at holding onto the ball, and at times in hurling, some lads aren't comfortable with holding onto the ball. They don't want to hold onto it. They want to get rid of it. So you need lads to buy into it, and like that, you need that to be perfected. But yeah, it takes time and it takes patience, and it's not something maybe that we look to do on a county final day.
There was a few lean years then. I'll just stick with the club stuff for now and we'll go back to county. But in 06 or 2016 rather, you played Rangers in the semi-final of the championship. It went to a replay and you lost by a point.
Yeah.
You were damn close to getting to a senior final, and then not too long after you struggled, go back intermediate, and then obviously you won it last year. Crazy.
Yeah, so that's, like I said, second year syndrome kind of. So I think 2016 we might have won the Leinster Division 2 league or something like that as well. And we had a decent team, I suppose. We had I think it was Eamon was over, Eamon Kennedy, Fergal Byrne and that. So we had a good backroom team there as well. And Eamon was to me, he was a good man manager in certain aspects, and we kind of bought into what he wanted to do and so on. And yeah, got us to a semi final. And again, it was another one where it probably got away from us a small bit. We were trying out things as well. Look, we had lads kind of playing out of position, and we were probably a little bit short in terms of what other teams, in their 15 to 22. We were probably a little bit short in that we were playing lads out of position, and we had lost maybe one or two. Dermot Summers had just gone to Canada, so we were still filling a gap there to replace him. So, one or two players at that level, and especially within our club, one or two players is massive, and especially the calibre of Dermot, who had been full back and I suppose a solid full back for many years for us. So kind of got away from us a small bit, but again, it was another one of those years where you'd look back and say it was one of the more enjoyable ones. And here you're winning a Leinster, let it be a league or whatever. It's still silverware at the end of the day, and we're not a club that's I suppose accustomed to winning county titles every second or third year. It's been a long time. So the fact that we got a bit of silverware that year, made a semi-final, and I suppose had a right rattle at Rangers that day. We were massive underdogs, so I'd look back and I'd say that year was somewhat of a success. Yeah.
So a couple of lean years then, and James English came in last year and turned it for you again.
Yeah, so we had Jim in last year. I suppose we weren't where we should be or where we want to be back down at intermediate. We had a couple of bad years. We had a year, I suppose, in between where there was a few lads didn't play. I didn't play myself. I think Beanie was gone. I think we lost Mark McDonald. We lost a couple of starters, that kind of way. And so they looked to go back intermediate and struggled a small bit. I think Michael bet them in the semi-final by 6 or 8 points. Michael's second team. So, the likes, that's not where we want to be. No, that's no disrespect to Michael's or to anyone else's second teams. But at the end of the day, we come from, a big town, and I suppose it's something we should have more pride in, that we should be playing at top level and that we shouldn't be back playing with second teams and so on. It's not good for Bagenalstown, and it's definitely not good for Carlow hurling to have the likes of Bagenalstown, Carlow Towns, and these playing at intermediate and junior levels. We need these guys all playing at senior level, making the championship more competitive and getting more games for guys. But like you said, Jim came in and he had a good background team with him last year. And yeah, another year where I kind of went back fresh. I suppose I had a fresh head to it, a fresh outlook on it. And I just went back kind of with the mentality of, I'll go back and I'll enjoy myself, and it was one of those things where, should I go back? Shouldn't I go back? You're only 32 or 31 at the time, whatever it was, and I went back, but you're kind of going, is it worth it? And I said, what, I go back. If I don't enjoy it after whatever amount of time, I'll just leave it at the end of the year and I'll be done with it. But for luck, I went back and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, so let's go back to county and 2010. We talked about the Christy Ring in, 08, 09. 2010, couple of great results. I remember you beating Wexford and Dr. Cullen.
Yeah, I look back at in around that period of time. It could be 2010 maybe to about 2012. I kind of, when I look back, that's kind of my fondest memories of county hurling. We had some really good players. We got some really good results. We were Division 1, could have been 1B at the time or whatever it was, but we had you had your Wexfords, your Dublins, Clares, Limericks. We were playing these guys, and I don't think there was on any day we really took a heavy beating. I know we went down to Clare at the end of one of the leagues and took a bit of a beating, but on the day we had probably put out somewhat of a second team in sense. We had a lot of lads not playing on the day. The league was more or less done for us. We couldn't gain anything from it. That was really it. I remember down in Limerick, I think it could have been 2 or 3 points in it on the day. Clare, we ran close or through with them and so on. We beat Wexford. Really, really good team back then. It was probably Kevin Ryan was the manager. To me, he was probably one of the best managers I've ever been involved with. Took the whole level. I remember when I started out with Garvey, I kind of said, "Jesus, this is good. Like, this is really, another step. This is professional. A step up. This, that, and the other." And then we went from there to Jim Green to Kevin Ryan, and I remember Kevin Ryan coming in, and I just remember kind of thinking to myself, "Okay, this is what it should be like." And we had Jerry Fitz come in the following year. Still to this day, I look back and say Jerry and Kevin was probably the best duo I've ever been involved with. Jerry on the psychology side of things and the physiology, he probably had us in somewhat the peak of my conditioning ever. Anyway, I'd say, I don't know about other lads, but yeah, kind of really bought into what he was doing, and just it was a great time to be involved with Carlow, to be honest. And probably, I know we didn't win a whole lot around then. I think we won. Did we win? We won a league maybe in around then, but in terms of Christy Rings and stuff, I think this was probably the period of time where I'd look back and say that was my most enjoyable.
Yeah, as you said, the win over Wexford, the narrow defeat to Clare, just by a point, in fact. I remember Shane Kavanagh missing the free, and it's something he still regrets to this day. I know from talking to him. That Limerick game, I think, was 2013, a wet day below in the Gaelic grounds, 3 points in it. Again, you were on the score sheet, I think, in terms of getting a goal. And then I remember, unfortunately, your hurler stuck on the ground late on, I think, possibly going for a second.
Yeah, I didn't think anyone would remember that. I still remember that one myself. Yeah, that was late on in the game.
It's always those things you remember, isn't it?
Yeah, they're the ones you remember. I remember the ball came, it broke over the fullback, and I can't remember who we had full forward on there, but I remember it broke over them, and I was in 1-on-1, and I went to pick the ball and stuck the hurl in the ground, yeah, and that at the speed of the game, that was it then. That was your chance gone, I suppose. I can still remember trying to do everything right. 2 hands on the hurl, went down to pick it and just stuck it in. There was a big sod of grass, wet, soaking wet, and it just stuck in the ground, yeah. And it's like still, I don't know why I went with two hands, because I don't normally hurl with two hands that in that sense. So you'd never really pick a ball with two hands, but yeah, it was just one of those things,
It was
you
a
know.
two-hand sort of day, I think. It was a rotten day.
Yeah, it's probably just the day I was in it, and you know, you were through, and you just said do everything right, bend, pick it, and just strike it, you know. And next thing you know, you're striking the ball in your head, but the ball is still on the ground, and your hurl is stuck in a big sod of grass. So look, it's just one of those things that, you know, it could happen to anyone. It's not something, I suppose, you remember it, but you don't carry it around forever. You're not going to beat yourself up about it. But yeah, it's one of those things where you look back and say, shit, I could have had more of an impact on the game there with that. Yeah.
Yeah, well, look, a few weeks later, you scored a hat-trick against London in the championship, so you learned your lesson anyway.
Yeah, I still remember that. Yeah,
And it was a dry day.
Yeah, I got dropped for that game. I got dropped.
The London game?
Yeah, I was dropped for that. Yeah, I came on as a sub about 20 minutes.
And you scored a hat-trick?
Yeah, I think it was around Pat English's time. He dropped me for the game. I wasn't happy, as you can imagine. So I had a bit of a sulk for a few days in the run up to the game. I think even on the day I was still sulking. And someone got injured. I think it was a blood sub, and I came on. I think the first ball came to me. I won it and turned it off. I think it was the Sean Murphy. He went through and scored, and the next ball I took out on the terrace side and got a point. And I kind of had to have a bit of an impact on the game, and it got to half time, and I can't remember who got injured, and they weren't coming back on. Yeah, anyway, they were still fixing them up, and got to half time anyway, and he just says to me, "Look, you're staying in," and yeah, I ended up getting a hat trick. And I think the last goal I got, Eddie Cody put on a play for me now, in fairness. I think he was coming through and the defender ran out to him and he just handed it in to me, and there was no one to beat, only the keeper. But look, I suppose that's what you're there for, is to be in the right place at the right time as well, and to put them away, you know. But yeah, it was one of those days where even after coming off scoring a hat-trick, I was still ticking after being dropped. Yeah.
Well, I think you proved your point anyway. Okay, so let's move on to the curveball part of the series, where I've asked you to pick your best 15 that you've ever played with. I can't imagine this was an easy choice, because I know the rest of the guests I've had on so far have been pulling their hair out as well. So we include club, county, shinty, schools, whatever, which obviously made it a bit more difficult on you. Who have you decided to go with?
So I hope there's a few lads don't listen to this now, because they could be fairly upset. There might be no Sunday roast in the house now, in the home house for a while, when Milky hears the team. So I went with Dotsy in the goal. Yeah, so a lot of success with Dotsy, really. I suppose my memories of Dotsy in the goal would be kind of in and around from maybe 16 up to about 22, 23 at the time. I think he was probably one of the best around. In and around that schools team at the time, and that trip to Croke Park with the club, he was very, very good in and around that time period. There has been other goalkeepers around, obviously the likes of Frank, and that I played with Frank, and Frank was exceptional as well. But I think I went with my heart there and picked one of my friends.
Good stuff. Full back line.
Yeah, so Alfie, Shane Kavanagh and Owen Nolan. Again, like some exceptional hurlers in there. Some great battles with the likes of Kavanagh and Nolan over the years at club level and so on. And Alfie then, I suppose, one man. You know, if you'd ask me who's the toughest defender you've ever played against, they're probably Alfie in training. He's just that type of player. He's just an athlete, I suppose. At the end of it, you look at him and you think, geez, there's not much to him. And next thing you walk out to him, and just the chap is 6 foot something, and he looks like he's slim, but his two shoulders are just so far apart. He's like a man mountain in ways, and so quick then as well, over 5 or 10 yards, and then he's so fit over maybe 2 mile runs. He just seems to have it all. So yeah, he just class hurler, I suppose. And like I said, the other two guys, Kavanagh, like I said about that day in 08, he's just phenomenal on the day. And then Owen, I suppose a bit hampered with injuries over the years, but can't take away from how good of a hurler he is either.
Yep, half back line.
So we're going for David English, Jacko, and Eddie Cody. There was a few a few lads left out of that there, I suppose, as well. The likes of Richie Cody and so on, who I suppose I'd be fairly friendly with, because I suppose we've hurled together since we were minor, and the whole up along, and some great battles with Richie as well. But I had to give the nod to Eddie. I suppose, considering what he's done for Carlow over the years, and he kind of took it to another level, I suppose. And I remember when I going in and playing county level at senior, and you're looking at Eddie, and the man would talk, and you just listen. He was one of those guys. He didn't have to shout or roar. Now, he would shout and roar as well at the same time, but he didn't have to. He had that presence where he could just talk and lads would listen. In terms of Jacko there, I suppose I've already said, he was one of pound for pound. He was probably one of the best around, coming up along in those first years. And I remember looking back at him, and we were only chaps, like, really, when you look at it. We were 20, 21, 22, and he was marking the likes of Joe Waters and Des Murphy and these kind of big men, Robbie Foley, and you're just looking going, Jesus, I wouldn't like to be back there now trying to handle those guys, and he just always got on with it, and he nearly, if anything, loved that side of it. And then sure, English, I suppose, what he's doing today, I probably didn't play too much with Davey, but I played enough with him to have him on the team anyway. What he's done for Carlow hurling there over the years as well, it's phenomenal. Just really wristy, really classy, I suppose, is the way I'd probably describe him. He's everything he does is clean and tidy, and I suppose at the back of it as well, he's not afraid to give you a few digs either. Which I suppose,
Middle of the field.
So a bit of a curveball in there. So I've gone for Beanie and Brendan Marr from tip. So I heard about 5 minutes with Brendan at shinty level, but he was one of those guys. You just, if you're picking the best 15 you've played with, whether it be 30 seconds or 5 minutes or your whole career, you're going to have him in there. Really, really good hurler. Then you have Beanie there beside him. Again, one of the guys we've hurled out of different age groups. He's probably two years behind me in terms of the age groups, but probably one lad I've probably hurled it more so than anybody, aside from my own brother James. But we grew up kind of in the same estate, and we never went anywhere without having a hurl in our hand. Again, it's similar to English in ways, very, very classy and very wristy and tidy in what he does. And I suppose it's a little bit like myself. He just hates losing. So yeah, I'd always have him in there beside me somewhere.
Good stuff. Half forward line.
So I've gone for Mouse on one wing of Michael Rice from Kilkenny in the middle, and then I couldn't pick between two, so I went with Feathers and Mark Brennan on the other wing. Again, Michael Rice, similar to Brendan Marr, was on the shinty. Didn't play too much with him, but the man was just so good back around that time. I remember going training with the shinty the first day over there, and looking at him and going, just the level that he was at was just, it was something I hadn't seen. I hadn't seen it at county level. I hadn't seen it at club level. He was just at a different level to everybody else at the time. Fitness levels were just crazy. It wasn't a pick on the man. He was there. I can't remember what weight he was, but I remember looking down through the programme, and I think my weight on it was like 11 stone 7 or something like that. And I remember everybody else on the programme was 13 and 14 stone, and you're just looking at them going, Jesus Christ, the size of these guys, and they were just so well conditioned. And I remember Michael Rice, there was not a pick on the man, but his hurling then was just top class. Couldn't fault the man.
Just before I go to the Feathers Mark Brennan debate, just touching on the shinty, I think it was the early part of the decade you played with the Irish shinty team, and you mentioned Brendan Marr and Michael Rice. Even that few training sessions or whatever you had, you can see the noticeable difference, even though you're also hurling at Liam McCarthy level at that time.
Yeah, so
seems like a naive question, but it's a genuine one. Was there a huge noticeable difference even in those two trends?
The way the shinty came around for me now was a bit different to everybody else, I suppose, in that the first leg of the shinty was on the same day or the same weekend that we were playing the intermediate county final. And on the day, Owen Kelly from Tipperary got injured, and then I got the phone call to go and play on the second day over in Scotland. So it was one of those offers where you couldn't turn it down. I think the same day or the same weekend we were due to play the Football League final, so I missed that, and went and played the Shinty. So I only really had the one training session when we got there. But yeah, you could really see the difference. You could see how well these guys looked after themselves. You thought you were looking after yourself, eating right and drinking right. But when you're around these guys, you can see how well they look after themselves, And again, that was, I suppose, a bit of an eye opener in a sense that you think you're doing it right, but there's probably still a little bit more that you can do. And look, everybody's probably like that in a way, but yeah, they were different level. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so just for the younger listeners, I suppose, to identify, does it really come down to, obviously you mentioned physique there, but the speed in which you do that, is that the most crucial aspect?
Yeah, so I suppose when I look back at my career at that level, I remember one of my first senior county trainings, and I went in and I sat down just in around the door in the outside pitch, and one side of me, Des Murphy sat down, and the other side, Joe Waters sat down, and then you had Desi Shaw and Shane Kavanagh. So that was kind of the corner, and I remember looking at the three boys, the three Michael boys, and they were just three giants. And I was this little skinny lad, and I was just like, Jesus, what am I doing here? I'll be killed, like. Um, and we had fitness tests, and we had, strength tests and so on. And I suppose when it came, I was like, I was young, but I would have probably been down around the bottom then of the strength side of things. So I made it my business to be at the top side of the fitness and the speed. And I kind of just went at that stage. It sounds silly, like, but my mentality was, if I'm quick enough, I'm fit enough. They can't catch me. They can't hit me. So that's kind of the mentality I went around with: was to stay fit and stay fast and stay at the front of all the runs, and try and slowly but surely get better on the strength side of things, and that'll all fall into place. But yeah, definitely. It's what you do outside of the park, and what you outside of training. That's really what's going to stand to you.
Good stuff. So back to the half forward line, we have Michael Rice in the centre, with Mouse one wing, and you're giving Feathers and Mark Brennan a half each.
I'll give them a half each. Yeah. I'll see how they're going. I suppose sometimes with Feathers, it depends what Feathers turns up. But I remember Feathers came on to the panel around, probably, I think it could have been 09, because I remember he was playing centre forward in the Christy Ring final, and I think he was still doing his leaving cert at the time. So that kind of tells you how good the chap was. But the two boys, I suppose, in ways were very similar in what they brought to the team and to the setup. Big physical men. They win the hard ball, and they weren't greedy. They'd look after other lads in a sense of, they'll throw out the ball to them and so on. There was no egos with either of them. They didn't have to be on the score sheet. As a forward, they possibly, like all of us, it's in the back of your head, chip in with a few scores. But, in the grand scheme of things, if you're winning hard ball and setting other lads up, to me, that's chipping in with scores. Your name doesn't have to directly go down on a score sheet or whatever. If you're playing full forward and you clear the full back out of the way for a lad to run through and score a goal, to me, you're still having an impact on the game, and you're still contributing to the overall result. So the two boys were very good in that sense. Didn't mind doing the hard work or the dogged stuff, and didn't have to be getting the headlines or anything like that. So they were, to me anyway, they were great. They were great lads, and I'd always have them in and around the team. Yeah.
Full forward line.
Yeah, so I went for Paddy Keogh, Robbie Foley, and stuck myself in the other corner then, seeing as I had to be on it somewhere.
Yeah, lads love that part.
Yeah.
So talk to us about Dwight.
So I suppose Paddy is Paddy. He was the next big thing coming up along through the age groups. I think him and Beanie maybe were in around the same age. Two fine hurlers coming along at that time. Paddy came into the county setup. He was on the 09 Christy Ring final team. I'm nearly sure he was corner forward, because I think I played outside him on the wing. But I remember he was after having a really, really good year that year. He was after chipping in with loads of goals. And I can remember, now maybe Paddy will say different, but I'm nearly certain he had a hard time of it on the day up in Croke Park. They kind of had him pinpointed, and they really had him man marked, and he was taking the rough side of it on the day, stuff off the ball and so on. And he, at the time, he was probably 18 or 19. He was only a chap anyway, but didn't faze him one bit. Got on with it, played his game. He went on to play. I know he went on to play maybe centre back for St Mullins and so on, but he was every bit as good in the forwards when he was coming up along. In a sense, he probably, like Beanie in English there, that kind of classiness about him. Real wristy hurler, real tidy. I remember he came back and played a game last year in the Intermediate Championship against us after being in Dubai for a year or two or whatever it was. But he still had the touches and had the flicks. Maybe lacking a bit of fitness at the time or a bit of pace, but in terms of the hurling brain, it was all still there. Everything was still functioning for him. Just class, yeah. I suppose with Robbie then, Robbie was one of those father figures to me, I suppose, when we were playing county hurling. Kind of really, really looked after me when I started playing. Probably had a hand in more goals than anybody, set me up so many times throughout the years. One of those giants that you just always wanted to be around. So easy on in at the back of it. But then, like I said about one or two, the man hates losing as well. So, that's the kind of mentality that I suppose I like to surround myself with. So yeah, he was a class man.
Right, so who was unlucky to miss out then? Two lads to jump off the page, or jump out for not being on the page, I should say. Dwayne Kavanagh and Dennis Murphy. Dwayne Kavanagh because he was such an unbelievable underage hurler, and Dennis obviously very talented too.
Yeah, the two guys. I probably didn't hurl too much with Dennis, to be honest. I think he was probably in and out of county setups, and I think he had a lot of injuries around the time. I hurled a couple of seasons with him alright at senior level, but I suppose it was himself or Paddy, I suppose, and I kind of went for the St Mullins man over the Rangers man. Dwayne around the time, I kind of had him in there as well, especially around that schools team that we had at the time. I think he played midfield on that for us. He was so good. But I suppose it boils down to you can only pick 15. It was actually so hard to pick. There's even there's Desi Shaw there. Was that cornerback. I suppose the fullback team back around that time was probably Alfie Shane Cavan and Desi Shaw. That was the actual fullback team we used to hurl with. There's a couple of lads there, Brendan Lawler, Duke. I mentioned Frank there for the goal. Even the likes of Fergie and Christy from my own club, good hurlers. But look, you can only pick 15. I won't be expecting any 3 points when the pubs open back up.
What about poor old Milky?
Look, I came down. There was a flip of a coin, I'll be honest, between Milky and Michael Rice. I had to go for Michael Rice. Milky's hamstrings wouldn't last the 60 minutes.
Great stuff. Listen, there's some great memories we're after rekindling there over the past hour or so. Thanks for joining us on the podcast. It's been a pleasure.
No problem at all, lad. Thanks very much.
So there you have it, one of the best goal scorers we have seen over the last 15 years or so here in Carlow, and again some great memories recalled. Next week is the season finale of my time on the Geansaí here on the Left Wing Back podcast, and trust me, it's one you won't want to miss as we speak to a man who doesn't typically do media and answers the questions that Carlow people have been looking for over the past decade. Thanks for listening in, and cheers once again to our sponsors Corcoran Precast Tanks. We're on all social media platforms, and again we appreciate the ratings, reviews and heaps of positive feedback which we have got to date. We do it all again for the last show of the series next Monday. Until then, take care.